Yo, people, welcome back to the YouTube channel. You already know what time it is. It's time for another collab. It's time for another video. And I've got my friend, Adrian Rabona TV alongside with me today. And it's a very tough one for him. I'm not going to lie, to join me before. So I do appreciate him coming on at such short notice as well after what happened yesterday. Bro, what was, I'm speechless, bro. What was that? Because me and you were conversing about this, right, on Twitter, and I was like, kind of understanding where you was coming from, and I was like, Rui Costa, let's understand what's at play. First of all, actually, though, how are you actually feeling? How are you actually feeling, bro?
Exhausted, run down, sad. No, I mean, look, it's just football in the end, but it's disappointing because, as we'll get into it later, it kind of derails what's been an incredible season so far for Benfica. It just the way that we did this deal makes absolutely no sense. To say no, and then say yes with like an hour left. Like, what was the time clock? It was like an hour left in the window or something like that, when finally it's like, okay, here we go. So it makes it all very, very difficult for Benfica, but Roger Schmidt's found gems before. We have a very good academy. Hopefully we can make something happen, but you can't replace world-class talent with an hour left in a window. It's just not going to happen.
Do you know what? Yeah, let's big up everybody in the chat. This is live, just because sometimes you will get confused as to whether I'm live or doing pre-records. It is live. I will be reading through your chats as well. That's why we're doing it live, because I feel like usually when me and Adrian do a collab, especially on my channel, it's always pre-record. So I'm like, you know what? Let's go live. And let's get you guys involved as well. They're saying, is this Adrian the presenter or Adrian the editor?
This is the presenter. The editor is working on something else right now. The industrial complex is in full flight right now. So I'll take this one.
Okay, let's unpack this, right? Because there was multiple stages of this deal. We went in. I kind of used the analogy yesterday on my deadline day stream. I said, you know what? We've gone into this Call of Duty map of Portugal, Rui Costa, we're calling it, in Portugal. And we've gone in all guns blazing, yeehaw, Cowboys, shut up the place. And, we made a lot of noise, but then, we got taken out, we weren't in cover, and we had to take ourselves back home. And then we come in this second time, and we're a lot more calmer, we're a lot more respectful, we're covering, we're ducking, we know all the hiding places. But Rui Costa is a dangerous map. It's the new map in Benfica. It's a new president, a president that does the right thing by his club. And I was sympathizing with the fact, I was saying, you know what? As a Chelsea fan, we can't actually just assume that other clubs are there to serve us. Like you were saying as well, I think you retweeted. And I agreed with you. Like, yes, we're annoyed Rui Costa's not allowing us to purchase the player, and we want to get him now. And this should be enough money, right? But I always said, for me, I felt like we were going to have to go down the option of getting him on loan. And signing him and loaning him back to you, because you are top of the league. You do have Champions League. You do have your own priorities this season. And then even if you do take a small hit, in the summer, even 20 million, at that point, at least you've got your trophies in the bag. And then it ends how it ends. And I'm just trying to go back and think to myself, why? Why is there a deal that we've done? I know great credit to us, right? Because we stuck at the table. We didn't move. Yeah. But how did Rui Costa end up giving us 6 installments, 40 million up front for a player that he was just never letting go? Like, what's been Benfica and your reaction to that? Like, when it actually went through, what was your gut feeling?
I mean, to go off the Call of Duty thing, you guys started spawn camping, just like not letting us get free from these negotiations, and then it turned into friendly fire. Or at least it sort of felt like. So to give you guys some context in the chat as to why we were so sure that this deal wasn't going to happen. Our former president, I won't get too deep into it, but our former president, Luis Felipe Vieira, corrupt guy, he was arrested for money laundering, fraud, all these sort of things. His ideal sort of setup at the club was to buy these players cheap and then flip them for profit. And he got very good at that for Benfica, to his credit. Of course, there was a little bit of a, unsavory business going on the side, of course, as well, as money sort of went missing. But that was sort of his MO. It was to put the sporting goals to the side and let's just focus on the financial aspect. Let's just be a selling club. So finally he leaves, and Rui Costa comes in, and we bring in Roger Schmidt, and we have all this great recruitment going on. We're bringing in Enzo Perez. We're getting all these guys now from the Danish league that I'm sure Todd Bowley is going to want to have a look at very soon. And everything's going well. Benfica doesn't lose a single game prior to the World Cup. We're doing well in the Champions League. We finish ahead of PSG. We don't even lose to them when we play against them. Everything is just going perfectly. Rui Costa says, we are not in a position where we need to sell players. Then these rumors about Enzo start coming out, and Liverpool's interested, Chelsea's interested, United, the whole world's interested. But he keeps on maintaining, we're not going to sell players. And you guys probably even remember Roger Schmidt said, Chelsea's been a little bit disrespectful with the way that they've gone about this. They made him crazy. They said they'd pay the release clause. Then they want to negotiate. Rui Costa backed him up saying he's not leaving unless they hit the release clause. So we're all very confident this guy's not going to leave until that last hour of the transfer window, where all of a sudden the script gets flipped. And the only reason why I can think that we finally accepted this deal is that Enzo must have been a nightmare. Yeah. And there's a lot of reports in Portugal saying that he did everything possible to make sure that this deal went through. I mean, previously he was suspended for a game or something like that because he missed training. Then he went back to Argentina. This was all when that first sort of wave of the Enzo and Chelsea kind of happened. Yeah. And so a lot of people are thinking that he must have really tried to manufacture this move and make it as disagreeable as possible for the club. And that's the only reason why they finally cut their losses. But as far as, accepting 6, and so we went from release clause only to accepting 6 installments and not having time to replace a player. And it just feels like what our former president would do: sell our best player and then not replace them and just be like, look, coach, good luck, make do with what you have. And so there's a lot of people that are saying, I feel for Rui Costa, he did all he could. And then there's some that are saying, well, this is no different from what our previous president did. So it's a lot of frustration in that aspect when we thought that we had moved on and we were just going to focus on our sporting projects, make that deep run in the UCL and potentially win the league. Now we don't know. It's all sort of up in the air now.
It is so strange to me because there was a good question that came up on screen, and it was about if you were going to cave, which obviously was not the plan, right? That was not the plan, was to cave in the end. The negotiation was something like, 8 or 10 hours? I don't know actually how that looks. I don't know if you know how that looks. Is that them in a room constantly? Is this the apprentice Rui Costa sitting at the head of the table with Todd Bowie and the other end of the table coming in and out of the room? People are going to be asking, and you're asking yourself, like, why not get that replacement lined up if you're going to cave in? But that wasn't the plan. I know that you guys were looking at a Varela, I think, from Boca Juniors, wasn't it, as a replacement? But too late in the end. I just look at the whole situation. I think to myself, what could Enzo possibly have done to like manufacture a move like in that way? If it's him that's done it, because we saw the first time, like you said, he went on strike. He missed. Did he miss training or something? And then you guys kind of said that you're gonna miss a match. But he very quickly then, once the deal broke down, went back to the team. I think, did he kiss the badge and he kind of celebrated?
Oh, he did everything. I mean, to his credit, he had one game where he was shit, which was against Braga. But I mean, to be fair, the entire team was really bad. We lost that game 3-0, our first loss of the season. But following that whole, issue that he had, he was back in training, smiling, posing for the end of training pictures with the team that won, etc. Really, really happy. He scored a goal. He starts smacking the badge. He kisses it. He says, like, I'm staying. He does that kind of thing for the fans. And then all of a sudden, I guess there must have been some behind the scenes contact going on between himself and the Chelsea board members or something to say, look, we can make this happen. We can get you out, but you have to do your part, which is put the pressure on, say that you really want to leave now, that you have no interest in leaving or staying on loan, because that's another thing that was sort of mooted was, will they buy him and then he'll stay at Benfica on loan, and we'd be more happy with that. So we can still sort of not just sort of derail our whole season. Yeah. But I mean, your guess is as good as mine as to what his actions were that actually made it that Rui Costa thought, okay, I guess we have no choice but to sell this player. But I mean, a lot of us are baffled. There's some of us that are just, we're disappointed because we thought, like, Rui Costa was supposed to be the chosen one. He's the one that makes us not just a selling club, that they put our sporting interests before our financial interests. Yeah. Maybe this is just a one-off, maybe it got to that point where Enzo Fernandez just had zero interest in staying, but there's actually something that I will tell you about when he first arrived, and just so you guys are sort of wary with him a little bit, because he's a very, very self-interested player. So I brought this quote up from when he first signed with Benfica. So bear with me for a sec. He said, "Since I was a child, my dream has been to play in Europe. Benfica is a great opportunity and I want to make the most of it. When Benfica contacted me, it also made me see that this is a great door to the springboard for even bigger clubs. Benfica gave me opportunity. It was the best opportunity for now, and I'll be able to show my full potential in Europe, just as I did at River Plate." So...
But 6 months? I mean, that is not the longest period of time. At least at least a full season. I think when we was going after this player, and the reason why I was so kind of this for me, and we spoke about this player, literally me and you before the transfer window opened. We spoke about Enzo Fernandez and we spoke about João Felix. Those were the two main ones, former Benfica players. We spoke about them and their potential to move. Obviously, Enzo, at that point, there was no clear links to Chelsea, but we knew he was going to be in the discussion in the summer because he was having a great period at Benfica. He was getting a lot of talk around his name. Then he has the massive World Cup, young player of the tournament. João Felix, because Diego Simeone had a falling out, so we was discussing his future. Again, nothing really that clear to Chelsea. But 6 months, that is a very short period of time. Now, I always said the reason why I want to get this deal done so badly, to the point where I was willing to even come to the conclusion that we have to loan him back to you just because we have to get this done, right? It's because he does look like a Real Madrid player. He absolutely stinks of Real Madrid. Like, I can see Real Madrid in his future. And I was like, do you know what? If we don't bring him in now, I guarantee I had the same gut feeling with Tchouaméni when we didn't get him from Monaco. If we don't get him now, I guarantee he's going to Real Madrid in the summer. They clearly could do with a midfielder. Toni Kroos, I think, is on his last legs. Camavinga's been turned into this like inverted left back. They could definitely do with another midfielder to go in there. Valverde's struggling at the moment, personal reasons. So I could see that from a mile off. He signed a contract with you guys until 2027.
Yep.
And 6 months later, you couldn't. And I'm not even going to get. Obviously, I'm not as emotionally attached to it as because it favored us. But you guys are angry with Rui Costa. I think Rui Costa actually really did clearly try to keep him. Like, I wouldn't look at Rui Costa as of yet right now and say that he's not cut out for it. I really do feel like that is the sternest, toughest test I think Todd Bowie and Ed Bailey have come across at the moment. Like, that was honestly nail biting to the point, bro, where you guys pushed us so hard on this deal. We didn't do any of our other deals. we were meant to get 2 or 3, 4 outgoings done. Hutchinson was meant to go to West Brom. Fofana could have gone to Nice, and Hakeem Ziyech was meant to go to PSG. And that was something that I was covering this morning, and I released that video, The Fallen Soldiers, because this Enzo Fernandez deal came at a cost. And it was clear when everything started breaking down, and we now learn from Fabrizio that, you know, when Stanley and Christopher Vivell and Egbali and Todd Bowie and everyone was literally, you know, working on this deal in any capacity to try and get it done, everything was pushed to the wayside. I made a joke on Twitter that even, you know, Billy the Kit Man had to get involved and try and do these outgoings because no one else was going to do them. And obviously now PSG are extremely angry with us, and this is all because of the attention we've put towards you guys. Is there a feeling as well where now that everything's kind of calmed down that Rui Costa isn't solely to blame for it? Like, it was 5 against 1, as somebody just said in the chat. 6 against 1. Enzo, he's praying. Apparently Fabrizio said he's praying to Rui Costa to let him go. I'm not gonna lie, if I knew someone personally and they're sobbing, they're tearing up, they're praying, I got 5 men in black suits in my office for 10 hours putting pressure on me, I probably would have caved as well. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I mean, I understand. It was very emotional yesterday, and it's easy to. I think the reason why myself, like, look, after a week or so, I'm probably gonna give it up and just be like, you know, he did what he could. Ultimately, you can't really say no to 120 million, even if it's paid over 600 years or whatever the deal was in the end. So I think that what made a lot of us react poorly towards it was sort of this PTSD, this like these same things are sort of happening as they did under Luis Felipe Vieira. That kind of thing is what makes us all a little bit worried that, you know, the Vieirismo, as they call it at Benfica, this sort of Vieira approach isn't really gone. It hasn't been defeated, and we're seeing the same sort of things happen. But I think with Enzo, I'm hoping, at least I'll say that, not I think, I hope this was a one-off, and that in the future, look, he's very early in his tenure as a president. I think he's only been president for maybe 2 years at this point. He's still learning on the job kind of thing. Yes, he's been involved for a long time within the club, but he'll get better. He'll know in the future to have that sort of contingency plan to maybe bring in a midfielder earlier in the month. Yep. But we don't know what happens behind closed doors, because like we sort of went over, all things sort of pointed to Enzo sort of accepting, like, you'll get your move in the summer. And then this last gasp, bring the entire Chelsea board and as many people as you can to sort of storm the Estadio de Luz.
Bro, even I was dressed up in a black suit, bro.
Yeah.
I did my deadline day stream. I dressed up in my Diego Simeone funeral suit. People were asking me, why are you dressed like that? I said, listen, this is a day of business. I need these, because the board right now, they're hopping in Twitter spaces. I even DM'd one of our board members who are on Twitter, and luckily he follows me, and I've never communicated with him once, but I was so desperate for Enzo Fernandez, and just like clearly our whole board was. I've never seen any board pursue a target for this length of time, this consistently. Even I DM'd him, and I was like, yo, please, please, do you have any information? Is this gonna get done? Because my whole live chat was just like stressing. People were starting to like fall asleep, pass out. We're tracking planes. Planes are getting delayed hour by hour. Like, not only did the board desperately want this deal, we desperately wanted this deal. And you know what's so funny is I know you guys, much like Brighton, you're going to replace him with some 15 million euro, 10 million euro Argentine or Ecuadorian, and he's going to be just as good. And I know that. I hand up. I already know that you guys are just that good at scouting. We're not there yet. So, yeah, we're definitely overpaying, but, it's unanimous that everybody seems to love this player. This super chat is saying, what do you think is the ceiling for Benfica under the new president? Will Benfica be limited to Portugal, or will it become a big club in Europe again?
Well, I mean, this season felt like it was a bit of a turning point. Like I said earlier, we went unbeaten before the World Cup. Roger Schmidt had us playing some fantastic football, really great attacking football, and Enzo was sort of at the heart of that, at the heart of everything good. Now, we've played without him on a couple of occasions, and we've done okay. We do have other players that are talented, but like I said, you can't really replace someone who is a world-class talent who basically went from, I think it's called Defensa Justica or something like that in Argentina to River Plate, didn't miss a step. From River Plate to Benfica, didn't miss a step. Like we spoke about in your previous video, actually, there was no settling in period. It was just he was in the team and it looked like he had been there for years and he was on the same wavelength as everybody. He was picking passes that we'd never seen before, that kind of thing. Yeah. He did the exact same thing in the World Cup. Steps in that game against Mexico, scores a banger, and then he's there for the rest of the World Cup, essentially. Just looking like he doesn't stand out for all the wrong reasons. Like Enzo can hang, Enzo can hang with anyone. He could step into any team right now. Yeah. So we can't replace a player like that just out of nowhere. He's one of those players where we knew we got an insane deal for him. I think like 17 million. There's all sorts of clauses, etc., that we paid to River Plate for it. An absolute steal. Yeah. We knew he wouldn't stick around, and to replace someone to that caliber, it's not going to happen. To get a very good player to come in, whether it's from our academy, because we have a couple of young players that, I shouldn't even be saying this publicly. We have a couple of young players that will be coming through that are going to look very, very good as well for the future. And also our recruitment has really improved. We're looking in markets that sort of go unchecked a little bit, like, Denmark, etc. This Schjelderup fella that we're getting, a good young winger / striker that's looking incredibly promising. So I know we'll find other players that are very good and we'll always have access to them, but it's just Enzo was special. You can see why we were desperate to keep him until the end of the season, because he can change a team completely.
Yeah, and I made the point on Twitter that people were saying in terms of revenue and money that could make up the difference, right? Because it was between the installments that we were willing to pay, which I never thought we would get the deal done with 6 installments. I was like, this has to come down to 2 or 3. Rui Costa is not going to accept this. He wants a release clause. He wants the full up front. You're either going to have to pay in 2, 3 max installments, or you're going to have to load him back. And I was starting to get desperate. I was like, this is not going to happen in the way we're structuring it. And then we get to the point where obviously it does. And some people in the chat are saying, obviously, he's tied down to an 8.5 year contract till 2031. But I think it's important to ask you, based on now your very short spell with the player, but like you said, immediately out 6 months in. Do you foresee a concern there for us in terms of if Real Madrid were to come calling in 2-3 years time, be on your guard that he could strike up a little bit of a fuss? Because let's be real, he ain't a Chelsea fan. He might be on an 8.5-year contract. He's not a Chelsea fan, from Argentina. I assume at some point, maybe Spain, maybe Real Madrid, maybe Barcelona. You never know. Football is a fickle game, fans and players and managers and boards. So we have to ask this question. We have to be realistic. Even though it's a new signing, we're all very pumped. Yeah. We know when those two clubs come calling. We had it for Eden Hazard. Luckily enough, we managed to keep him for a long time. I think I'm sitting in a position where I'm like, if Enzo was to leave at 28, 29, I would have taken that as a W. Do you know what I mean? If we get a good fee. But what do you think on it?
I know that this comes across as like a
salty.
Scorned, salty, like a scorned ex-lover or something like that.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, after 3 years, I would start to get a little bit nervous with him if he's not re-signing contracts, etc. I think that his ultimate goal is probably to end up in Spain. I don't have a lot of evidence to suggest that he's a Real Madrid supporter, but I just think that it goes. You can take it as fact that like anyone from South America or what have you, they want to end up in La Liga. They want to be at Barcelona or they want to be at Real Madrid. I think that he would want to take that next step. And like you said, you have that midfield that's already sort of building up with Tchouaméni, Valverde, Camavinga, essentially. He could be that next player that sort of starts that dynasty at Real Madrid, or continues the dynasty, I should say, at Real Madrid. So I think that all that he has shown at Benfica is that you cannot trust him when he's smacking the badge and he's saying, I'm here to stay and that kind of thing. And the fact that he said right off the bat, I'll take you back to that quote, that he saw Benfica as a good springboard for the rest of Europe. Do I see Chelsea as his final landing spot? I mean, with all due respect, I don't really think so. I think that he sees it as a great profile and to potentially win trophies and enjoy himself in a huge city like London. But if Real Madrid comes a calling, I would be a little bit nervous if I was a Chelsea supporter.
Yeah, no, I'm very realistic in terms of the long term with him. He's on a big contract, so it gives us a lot of power. And I think with the way inflation's going, I mean, 100 million is the new 40 million. 100, everybody's 100 million now. You don't even pay 100 million for season's form. It's now actually just potential. It's what you think is going to happen. The price that you got for Nunes, for example, you know, you've already just lost that massive marquee sum. But you guys are making some serious dough, I have to say.
It's great. I wish that this dough could start in a Champions League game, but unfortunately it can't, you know.
But we was looking at like the price difference. What's the, because for Champions League we went through it and it was, you know, each round you're looking at 10, sometimes 14 million euros each round, depending on the round that you could potentially get in prize money. So I could see how if you were to have Enzo and maybe he gives you an extra round in the Champions League, he's that kind of difference maker, how you could make some of that money back that people were talking about. Oh, you're only going to get 80 in the summer. You're going to get 120 now. Or sorry, 105 now. And if we're talking pounds, you probably get 80 million pounds in the summer. I can see how that gap reduces quite quickly with Enzo in your team for a sporting reason. How much do you get prize money if you win the Portuguese league?
I actually have no idea if there even is prize money for that. It's such a tough league to be attractive to players. For that reason is that there's just not much money, you know. A lot of the revenue that you have to generate is through player sales and stuff like that. TV deals, pretty much nothing. It's washed in that sense. So I think that's the reason why it's difficult for clubs like, you know, back in the old days, like the 60s, when you could have homegrown players up against other homegrown teams, you know, like Benfica could beat Real Madrid and give them a good game and be the best team in Europe. But that just doesn't happen anymore, you know, as we've seen with this transfer window alone. Teams just can't compete with the English Premier League. It doesn't happen, and players know that, and it makes it very difficult to be anything more than a springboard, to use Enzo's words. And it's just sort of a reality, which we thought, you know, we could at least hold on to Enzo for a full season.
Yeah,
right.
One season,
just one season,
just one season,
dude. That's how low the bar is at this point. Like, if we can have him for one season, oh, that's great. Like,
like a loan deal, isn't it? That you're getting.
Yeah, absolutely. It's crazy, man.
Oh wow,
it's really tough. So, I don't know. It's a bit doom and gloom right now. I'm sure it'll fade, and you know we'll feel more optimistic. Hopefully, we can have a nice little run in the Champions League without him, but we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, I do remember this. Fabrizio said at 8 o'clock that the talks broke down and the owners, instead of getting on the 8:30 flight that was due to leave Lisbon and go go home. They decided that they were going to delay it and they were going to stay. I don't know. I would love to see an Amazon documentary made on this, because I don't know what type of persistence and what type of mentality it takes to be in this situation all day long. The stress, and if you don't get it done, I said to myself around about 5 p.m., 6 p.m. I said, listen, we actually kind of have to get this done now, because we could have easily walked away from the table and went and pursued an alternative target. We were linked with Caicedo at Brighton. He would have cost an arm and a leg anyway, so I don't even think that would have been a financially more appetizing deal, considering I think Enzo is a much better player. But you could have gone elsewhere. So to stick around and just stay there. When was the point, before we get to, don't worry guys, I've saved some of your questions that I'm definitely going to ask on Felix, etc. What point in the day did you think, oh, this is not looking good? Like before Fabrizio started giggling like a schoolgirl and whatnot, because he was getting very excited.
I mean, maybe it was that delusion, but like I was saying earlier in the stream, we all had that belief and that trust in Rui Costa that he wasn't going to accept anything but the release clause. We thought it was release clause or nothing. And it seemed like, and evidently so, Chelsea wasn't able to do the release clause. I didn't read too much, and it's something to do with taxes and FFP and blah, blah, blah. So I was pretty optimistic that the transfer wasn't going to go through until I heard Fabrizio, it's been a long day. Fabrizio say that, like, hang on, I have something, guys. And then I was like, oh, shit, here we go. That was the moment where I essentially was still in denial. Like, you know, maybe he's just trying to build up all these people coming to his stream for Ziyech news or something like that.
If that happened, I swear, the trolling, I would have just lost.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That would be a meme for years. But no, once he said the name Enzo, I knew that it was not breaking down. It sort of felt like this is it. I accepted it, and I knew I had some work to do as far as first of all not losing it on the timeline, and then also getting a video done, etc. It was a long day, man. I mean, you were streaming, and streaming. It was a emotional roller coaster that, like I said to you before we started recording, I thought that they had stopped that roller coaster, condemned it at the beginning in January, but then they fired it right back up. So I guess credit to the persistence of Boli and the other guy, Egbali.
Yeah, Bali. This question was about the potential of Enzo and Felix. Obviously, when we spoke on Felix as well. And when that transfer went through, again, that for me, Felix and Enzo are my favorite transfers. We spoke about them here. We did a little comparison between Felix and Leao and which one is kind of like a preference for us. And I would have said and did say Felix, just because I remember Felix at Benfica. I'm kind of writing off his time at Atletico Madrid like a bad debt. Do you know what I mean? I'm writing it off because of the system, because of Simeone. And I'm just focusing on what he did at Benfica in the Europa League run. And I'm thinking, this is a guy that, even on a loan deal, I'm so excited and I'm hoping that it can get done on a permanent. What was you thinking when you seen that go through? Like, do you think Felix can Chelsea revive Felix? Will Felix revive Chelsea? Or do you see this as like, nah, not going to work?
No, I think that he needed to get out of Atletico. It was just a bad situation for him, playing style wise at the time. I think he had absolutely no relationship with Simeone. That was just totally done. He wanted to get out of there since, I think, October or something like that is apparently when he really started to contact the club and say, like, find me a move out of here. I want to get out desperately. And that's when Jorge Mendes started to look for moves. And I think that he showed in that first 60 minutes or whatever it was against Fulham just how talented he is. I mean, he came onto the pitch and he looked like, in my opinion, I'm biased, but in my opinion, he looked like the best attacker out there for Chelsea.
Not even close, bro. Wasn't even close. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that you can see these flashes of that brilliant player that you saw at Benfica that was so dominant when given the keys to the attack, essentially. And so I think that at Chelsea, especially with all of the recruitment now that Chelsea has done, with Mudryk playing down the left, with Enzo behind him to sort of link up with, because Enzo loves another technical player to sort of bounce off of. He had João Mario. I know there's levels to this, of course, but he had João Mario. He had Rafa, etc. at Benfica to sort of bounce passes off of together. So I think that the link up between those two is going to be excellent. I don't know if you'll see I don't know what the attack is even going to look like anymore.
Bro, I can't wait to do my lineup for Fulham, and obviously when he's back from suspension against West Ham, because I feel like I'm playing FIFA. I genuinely feel like I'm playing FIFA, and it's like I sympathize with you because I know that as for you as a Benfica supporter, it feels like you can't even enjoy. Someone said can't even enjoy the fruits of your labor. You spend all that time scouting, and yes, you get the money, but you're not going to get to watch the money like on the pitch, like you said. You want to enjoy the football and at least one season. Whereas for me, it's like polar opposite. And thankfully, on international level, I get humbled, so I get a little more balance. Oh, trust me, bro. I don't even have a connection with international football in terms of supporting, a country that deeply, because I just get nothing but disappointment. So that gives me a little bit more perspective. But with us, it feels like we're genuinely playing FIFA. Like I signed Felix on career mode, I signed Nkunku on career mode. Suddenly they're here. I'm like, what's going on? It doesn't really. Felix to Chelsea is a move that just doesn't make any sense. It's one of those deals where it's like it's not something that's going to happen in real life, so you have to do it on a computer game. And I am looking forward to seeing what kind of link up that will be for the people that are coming in now. Big up everybody in the chat. Obviously, we did our player special, but I guess a brief kind of summary of what we're getting for those people that just don't know Enzo Fernandez or have only seen him at the World Cup and want a bit more information on the player, on what to expect, what's his best position, who should we partnering with in our midfield, etc. What can you say about the player that we're getting here for this money?
Yeah, so I think that Enzo, he can play sort of any position in midfield. You can play him as a 6, you can play him as an 8, you can play him as a 10, he can play a little bit wider as a Mezzala, that kind of thing. But I think that where he has absolutely shined the brightest for Benfica is playing as sort of a creative 8 that gets up and down the pitch. He will contribute in defense because he's a very good tackler. He reads the game really well. But if you play him too deep, as we saw with Argentina sometimes, I feel like you're taking away a lot of the best aspects of Enzo, which is his verticality, getting the ball forward and what he can do in the final third. So how he worked at Benfica was playing next to Florentino. Florentino was our hard man in the midfield. He's the one that protected the back line. He's doing a lot of the dirty work. He's reading the play and trying to break it up, and then he's giving the ball to Enzo to distribute. And that's where you want Enzo. You want him on the ball, dictating play, spraying balls around, that kind of thing. So if you play him as sort of an 8, allow him to sort of roam a little bit to the left as he likes to do. Allow him to roam a little bit to the right sometimes as well. Just playing in front of a defensive midfielder, that's where you're going to get the most out of him. You don't need to worry about him getting back and contributing defensively. Sometimes he would even split our 2 center backs. He would drop that deep just to get on the ball so that he can orchestrate. But yeah, I think that played as an 8. He's great. And if you wanted to play him as a 10, he has the technical ability to do it. He can do that quick interplay around the box with people. He can also hit long balls, measured through balls, all sorts. He's, I think we talked about this in your last video, but going through his FB ref, just as a guide, it's 99th percentile, 98th percentile for progressive passes, through balls, expected assists, all this stuff. You need him on the ball. You need him to be on the ball, pulling the strings. That's where he has to be.
And for me, the reason why I was so desperate for this as my top midfield target over the likes of Jude Bellingham, over the likes of, anyone really, unless it's a DM, which is, like you said, a completely different position because that's not his position, is Chelsea struggle with 2 things. They struggle with vision and execution, which I'm going to put into one because I feel like if you don't have one or the other, then there's literally no point of having, do you know what I mean? You have to have both. And then second of all, dictating tempo. We've got so many Chelsea players in the midfield that play at 100 miles per hour and they can't seem to slow down. They're like a hamster in a wheel. They're just constantly pressing, running. Every time they get the ball, they move at such a speed, they can't control themselves. And then we have other players, one in which a lot of people complain about in Jorginho, much love and respect to him, has just gone to Arsenal. And it looks so weird. I must say, it looks so weird to see him in an Arsenal shirt. But they'll say he moves the ball too slowly. And obviously off the ball, he's not the quickest, etc. So there's never been someone in there since, I would say since like Fabregas, have we had someone who actually moves the ball faster, then they want to move themselves. We have so many ball carriers who want to run with the ball, but then don't have the vision or the execution to kind of play that final pass and make good of their work. Whereas who is it, that famous manager that said the ball moves faster than any man? I can't remember who that was that said that. Yeah, but the ball does move faster than any man or any woman. And if you play that pass and you play it to the nth degree, we've seen partnerships with Cesc Fabregas, Diego Costa, but you have to have the vision, the execution, and you have to be able to dictate tempo. And I think that's something that he's very good at. So like you said, he can play in multiple positions, but you kind of don't want to restrict him if that's the thing. You don't want to put him as a sitter. I would agree with you. I think for me, who would you say in the Chelsea squad is best equipped to play next to him? Because we don't really have many, if any, clear DMs. I said Zakaria. That's just purely because of his opposite profile, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I think that would make the most sense. I mean, you could answer that question better than I could, but I think that Zakaria would be the one that you would look to if is he healthy?
He's injured. He's
still injured. That poor guy, man. He can't catch a break. But yeah, basically, if you have someone in there that can sort of worry about the defensive side and allow him just to get forward, like something that you said about sort of his tempo of play and moving the ball. He's not a side pass merchant. That's not what he's looking to do. He's looking to progress all the time. And there's something that I really like about Enzo is just how accurate his first time passing can be. Because I don't know how many times I've seen him receive a pass with about 3 players surrounding him, 2 players, 3 players. Just typically you're thinking like, why are you passing to this guy? And he'll just hit a first time pass in a variety of ways. He'll hit a outside of the boot directly right to his teammate. He'll hit a first time chipped ball in behind, so you don't need to worry about him necessarily. I think that that's something that is a good way of articulating it, is that you don't need to worry about Enzo ever, because you know that he's probably going to make the right choice, and he also has the technical ability to be able to pull off a pass when he's under pressure, when he's surrounded, but give him time and he's going to kill the other team as well. And I should say this while people are here. It sounds like I'm overhyping, but like I was saying earlier, I haven't had a reason to doubt him at this point. He went to River, thrived. Benfica, thrived. Argentina in the World Cup, thrived. So far, it's looking good for the future as well. But I mean, the Premier League will be a great test for that.
Yeah. Todd Burries hasn't deleted his Twitter for this super chat. I've just searched it up. It's still there. What do you think the bigger signing is for us, Mudryk or Enzo? For me, like I said, the only 2 players that I was like in this window, I'm like, yo, I know these guys, and from what I've also heard about these guys as well, in terms of Enzo's case, I know Felix way better than Enzo, but for Enzo, I've just, like you said, there's just been no doubt along the journey. There's just no doubt anywhere. So it's like, and it's also the profile, because it's a priority position for me in terms of what I want to see in this team, a midfielder and a right back. When that midfielder got done and it's of the caliber of Enzo, I'm always going to place that higher on the spectrum than say a Mudryk, because I think, listen, Mudryk's a great talent. I don't know Mudryk really at all. I have never watched the Ukrainian league game. He obviously wasn't at the World Cup. He has a very small sample size, but again, he looks very, very talented. But we have had wingers come in before that have, you know, some dribbling ability and some chance creation. And what is making me more excited about Mudryk is, again, his training, his gym work, his kind of mindset. He seems to be really built to last, and he seems to be very serious about making it to the top of the game. And we've got a lot of wingers that, especially when they come to the Premier League, if they don't focus on that physical side of things and they become quite frail, they will pick up injuries galore, because the Premier League will cut you straight down. But it has to be Enzo for me that I say is the bigger one, because I've seen more, he's shown more at a higher level, and he's in a more priority position, which is midfield for us. So that's the reasoning behind why I'm going to be picking Enzo on that one. Can you please, I guess, comparison to any famous player in La Liga or EPL, which you can relate to, I guess, is a comparison to Enzo's game? Projections, maybe. I
mean, I guess like it's not a direct comparison, but I guess you would think sort of an Iniesta or a Xavi or something like that. Maybe more Xavi, just because, you know, less dribbling on the ball, more progressing it through the passing, and already knowing where the ball is going before he even receives the ball. That kind of thinking, you know, he's always a step ahead. I would say that if you were to compare him to anyone, I'm sure there's a better comparison out there, but that's the first one that really jumps to mind. That's more accessible, that everyone sort of knows. I would say that Xavi maybe is someone you'd look to.
This question is actually a good one as well, because we have been playing a 4-3-3, but I guess it's not set in stone. Potter's always rotated between many different formations at Brighton, so I'm not going to just assume now that he's calmed it down on one system, but he seems to have put a pause to the rotations, at least for now. What formation do you think is best for Enzo? Obviously, you've seen him in a 4-2-3-1, and then for Argentina, they've just been playing a whole heap of different formations.
Yeah. So I would say that a 4-2-3-1 is where he's been incredible for Benfica. He's balled out in the Champions League as well, against PSG, Juventus, etc. So in that 4-2-3-1, he's looked good. I think also some sort of variation of a 4-4-2, he can also thrive there, so long as he has that midfielder next to him. I mean, again, it's not as if he's going to struggle as a lone six or something like that. But as long as he has that midfielder next to him, someone to play off of and someone to take care of the defense, he's going to be good. So in some sort of midfield too, he'll be totally fine. I have zero worries about him. But yeah, as far as we've seen, 4-2-3-1 has been great for him.
Yeah. For me, when people discuss pivot partners, I genuinely believe that we have to be very, very careful about who we say is partnering him, because I do think when you say players like Kante is not a sitter either. Now, in Matic and Kante's time at Chelsea, when they played together in that title win, one would stay, one would go, one would stay, one would go. But, you know, there was a balance to it. But I think for me, when I look at Kante and I think to myself, what is he best at? I don't see him as a shackle. Even though he's had injury players, I wouldn't ever shackle him and say, I'm going to ask you to remain, positionally rigid. I would want him to still be getting around and doing his part, even if it's for less games, still doing what he does best. Andre Santos is a player that's coming in as well. He's only 18 years old. He's been lighting up for under 20s in Brazil. I don't know what's going on. It seems like they play a game every day and he scores every single day as well. But I agree with you in terms of there's got to be a clear understanding of who's playing next to who. And for Benfica, he was playing next to, was it Luis?
Florentino. Exactly.
Yeah.
And they had a great partnership, but I mean, he also had a great partnership at Argentina with Paredes, with McAllister, with DePaul, whoever was in there. So I think that he's one of those players that their football IQ is so high and their ability matches that it's hard to find someone he wouldn't really jive with.
Before we move on to other matters quickly, before we come to a close as well, what did you think of Enzo? I guess what's the word now? I've kind of lost my train of thought here. I'm thinking on the spot. I had the question lined up. That's it, because we spoke about it already. So I don't want you to repeat yourself too much. But there's new people here, so I'm trying to cater to them as well. Weaknesses. There's not many, is there? But there are a couple of weaknesses I think that was mentioned, and every single person that seems to do their report on him, they do mention a couple of weaknesses. Any weaknesses that you've seen in this game that could be a problem? I don't know.
Not necessarily a problem, but I mean, sometimes he would run into trouble at Benfica or not necessarily trouble, but he would get a card early. And he does sort of have that fire, which I hear that Chelsea sort of needs in midfield a little bit. He does have that fire. He does have that aggression. I remember when Benfica was playing against PSG, he was just going at Neymar over and over and over again and really rattling his cage. But he did get a yellow in the second minute. So for the rest of the game, you're sort of thinking like, okay, let's back off a little bit, So hopefully he doesn't have a João Felix debut. But I don't think that was necessarily a huge issue, because he never got a red at Benfica. So I don't know if that's just luck or if that's presence of mind that he can actually, he can turn it on and he can turn it off kind of thing as far as the intensity goes. I would also say that if you're expecting him to, dribble through multiple players, that's not really his style. Is he capable of it? Maybe now and then, but it's not really his style. He progresses the ball through his passing mostly. So don't expect him to go dribbling through players and stuff like that. As far as other sort of...
I think that's a good thing though. I do. Yeah. I think that's a good thing. I think we've got enough players, whether it be Ruben Loftus-Cheek, Mateo Kovacic, even Kante, when he's at his best, he loves to carry the ball, probably forgetting others. Andre Santos looks like he wants to carry the ball as well a little bit, even though he's very young. I think we've got enough players that want to carry the ball. And I think sometimes when we're seeing this new thing with midfielders, isn't it, where they're almost wingers, like Iwobi, even though we're going much lower now quality-wise, are becoming midfielders. Joe Linton was a striker. He's becoming midfielders. Traits that you would associate with wide players or with other positions, they're suddenly now starting to come into midfield and take those traits and use them in there. And it is making things more interesting. I think there's more ball-carrying midfielders in this kind of newer generation of players than there's ever been. And then obviously there's less passing masters, it feels. But in this team in particular, they desperately need a passer, because the amount of forwards that have come to Chelsea, and they haven't always been technically secure. First touches have been sometimes very messy. Sometimes, in terms of their overall game, it's been very limited. But the one thing that is so consistent with Chelsea's attack every single year, even with Aubameyang this year, even with Felix in that game against Fulham, is runs are just not spotted. So many times there's a simple ball over the top or in between the lines to play, and it's not getting played. And it's very, very almost important that Thiago Silva does everything from a build-up standpoint, he's the one that has the vision. He's the one that we funnel the ball to. But he's another one that will make the ball move in a slower manner because, of course, he's only 30. He's 37. Not only, he is 37. So he's going to move the ball slowly. And that's where the tempo, dictator comes from with Enzo. Is not only is he going to see those runs, but he's also going to quicken up the play if he feels like he has to. So that's always been a big problem, and hopefully now that's kind of solved. I wanted to ask you just overall, from an outsider's perspective, what you've made of our window and the way we're moving, and like what is going on, isn't it? Because it's just crazy. I mean, the amount of money we spent, etc. Everybody in the Premier League hates us. So now I'm looking for friends outside of.
I mean, look, it's frustrating from our point of view because we can't keep up. I mean, it was hard enough to keep up before, and then you see a window like this from Chelsea where they're outspending the other top 4 leagues plus the championship or something like that combined. So it's difficult to be excited when you see a team spending like this, because it just spells not doom, but it spells more difficulties that soon. What are we going to only be able to enjoy a player for 2 months now? And then, then the deal's already going to be done. We went from enjoying players at Benfica for 1 season, if they're really good, to 6 months in the case of João Felix and now Enzo. It's just getting crazy. So, I mean, I don't love it, but at the same time, it was never. People are acting like they're surprised by this. And it's not really surprising. I think that maybe for some it's surprising that Bowley and Clearlake or whatever came in and they actually backed the club and actually invested, because you're used to other sort of horror stories with the Glazers did spend a lot on the squad still, they did, but they're always sort of pointed at as this, they don't get the right players and that kind of thing. And it seems like you sort of have this synthesis of an ownership group that is willing to spend money, and on top of that, identifying good targets and going for them and getting them. So that's very scary for everyone else when you have those two things together, the money plus identifying the good targets and actually going for them, where you're going to build this all-star team. And I think the only question that no one really understands fully is how it all plays out in financial fair play and what that's going to look like with these 17-year contracts that you guys are signing and this kind of thing.
But this is the last window we could do that, isn't it? Obviously, UEFA stepped in and they decided that, this is the last time. We didn't realize that there was a little, blueprint at the bottom. There was a terms and conditions that we didn't see in our legislation. So we're not going to let this happen again. And it's kind of strange that we're the first ones to. Are we the first ones to see this loophole, or are we the only ones to actually act on it? Because there is a risk of signing up players for this long-term strategy in terms of the contract. I think if Chelsea had done this, they could never do this, right, with experienced players. It has to be young players that you've scouted, that you feel like the potential is going to exceed the market value that they're currently at, that you're currently paying. And then if they work out, then great. You've got yourself some top players. You're winning trophies. If they don't work out, the cheaper ones especially, you're going to sell them on for a profit, and that's not going to give you any issues FFP wise. Some of the statistics that I was looking at on Enzo as well, before we go to Benfica and your title race, because some I think it was a Porto fan in the chat is starting to sniff around. He's saying, is there cracks under the surface here for this league title race? I've seen that you guys are 10 points clear. You've played 2 games more though. Yeah. But like you said on F Brief, I mean, some of the statistics, the percentiles are ridiculous, 99, all over the place. But also one of them that really speaks out to me, and I'm wondering, because I don't get to watch Benfica that much at all. I've seen them in Europe mainly. I haven't really get to watch Portuguese games. I can barely even get the Premier League games on in England over here. In terms of his accurate long balls, they're 10.5 per 90 or something like that I saw, and it shatters everybody else in the league. Is that something? And in terms of that, is like you said, he's not a sideways passer, so I'm guessing he's a vertical a lot of the time, and they're very progressive. Is that something that you've just noticed in his game, that stands out so clearly, the long balls?
Yeah. So just to clear that up, because I saw some people talking about it in the chat as well, as far as sideways passes. Look, every midfielder has to pass sideways. You can't just always go forward. So he will pass sideways now and then. But what you're talking about in particular there is when he'll get the ball in a deep position, maybe closer to the left back, for example. Maybe he gets it from Grimaldo. He'll turn and he can do a quick switch of play with a very, very accurate diagonal ball to maybe the other fullback or to David Neres, our winger, or something like that. So that's, I would assume that is what we're talking about in that sort of vertical, as well as getting the ball deep and then just launching a counter attack quickly from, going from a corner kick that we're defending to quickly launching João Mario or Gonçalo Ramos forward with a long ball. That's, again, pinpoint accurate because his technique is just, I mean, you guys will see it. It's just ridiculous. He has like a wand of a right foot. It's very, very good.
Yeah.
I'll miss it. I'm going to miss that number 13, man. I'm going to miss it.
It's mad. He's now wearing number 5 for us. He's taken Jorginho's number immediately. This question here is Benfica getting Alan Viella? I guess not now. Your window closes on the 2nd, does it?
I mean, I don't even, honestly, I've been up since 5 a.m. I don't even know what's going on anymore. Like I really am just like
same. I was pretty much screwed this morning as well. I was like, can I make a video? Can I not? Can I reincarnate?
Yeah. I know. This I've heard a lot of this Varela talk. There was even some talk about Guga, another player in the Portuguese league. I don't know if anything is going to happen. I thought the window was already closed personally, but I don't know if anything's going to happen. But it looks like at least Benfica is starting to get the recruitment down a lot better. Like I said, we've gone into different markets now, but we also have seemingly gotten interest in going back to Argentina. So I wouldn't be surprised if we start picking off more Argentinian midfielders from Boca and River Plate.
On that Porto fans question as well, before we wrap up, any worries about the Portuguese league? Obviously, Champions League, you got Club Brugge. They had a good group. I think they lost their last 2 games, though. I'd still back you guys to if you're at your best to go and beat them. Although it will be an interesting game because they've been great going forward. But in the league, are you worried? 2 games played more, and maybe Porto get back involved in the conversation last year's champions.
Yeah, I mean, you can never write off Porto. You can never write off Conceição. He's a great manager. I mean, he's one of the best managers for me. He has sort of that Simeone-esque like attitude to him, where players want to kill for him. So you can never write off Porto, and they're serial winners. Let's just be completely honest. Like, rivalry aside, they're serial winners. They always find a way. So I think that you can never be comfortable. We've seen leads in Portugal. Benfica at one point was 7 points behind. They ended up winning the league. The same has happened with us, where we've blown a lead where we are 6-7 points ahead, and then Porto came back and took it from us. Braga is also a team that's doing well in Portugal right now. So you have that added aspect of Braga can hurt you, Porto can hurt you, Sporting. I mean, they could potentially, but they're not at the peak of their powers as they were under Ruben Amorim a couple of years ago. So no, it's not comfortable. And especially when you lose a world-class player like that in Enzo, it's always going to be difficult. Yes, we have Frederick Ursnes, who's doing fairly well. That was another player we picked up from Feyenoord this past summer. And we have other young players coming through that could potentially add to the team. But again, like I've been saying, to think that you can replace what we lose in Enzo Fernandez is just very, very wishful thinking, almost to the point of delusion.
Wow, that's a big loss then, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think guessing this is a Benfica fan because I think it is, and he's saying the window is closed in Portugal but open in Argentina. But if it's closed in Portugal, it means you can't get any deals incoming, of course. Bro, it's been a pleasure. I really appreciate the timing as well because I'm on cloud 9. I was doing a mad dance last night and going crazy, and you're the polar opposite because obviously you've lost your star player. But listen, you guys will bounce back. Your recruitment is something that I've been very jealous of for a long time. I've gone through the list of names. I was actually annoyed, and I said it actually to you last time we spoke, I think on the channel. I can't remember if it was on or off air. I said, why did we allow our relationship with Benfica to die? Look at all the players that you guys recruit in terms of like Ramirez, Matic, David Luiz. We actually, so many players have come through from Benfica. And it's like, and then obviously your European history and the pedigree is huge as well. So you guys are mad, man. Honestly, you're going to find someone. I have no doubt about that. You guys always seem to do it. Let them know where to find you, bro. It's been a pleasure, man. Absolute pleasure.
Yeah, of course. First of all, Shelderup, remember the name. He's the next one up. And then, just search Rabona TV as is written up above, and you'll find me on YouTube. My Twitter account is pretty washed. Don't bother. But if you want to find me there, it's Rabona_TV. That's it. That's all. You could. That's where you'll find me. Yeah. Thanks for having me on, man. It was a great chat as always, and thank you once again for taking part in that Conte video. That was
Yes,
that was sick. It was really fun making that.
I enjoyed that. Conte and Tottenham, honestly, just you never know what's going to happen over there in terms of the drama, man. But listen, we are very much hated in this island now of England with our spend. But I've just decided to embrace it now. I think no one likes us anyway. We were always the first ruiners of football. Then obviously came City, PSG. We may as well embrace this now. So it is what it is, guys. Make sure you subscribe to Roboda TV. The link is down below, of course, and will be in the title as well. YouTube Studio's been messing around today. It's been moving mad. I haven't even been able to monetize half the content, but it will be in there and fixed up soon. Make sure you subscribe to both channels, guys. Roboda TV is giving you the knowledge across the board. He's one of those people, and I'm saying this right here when he's with me. He's one of these people that they cover all of football and they know exactly what they're talking about. They're giving you the insight that you need. And this guy speaks on everybody. I don't actually know how he does it, but he speaks on everybody and anyone at any given time. So if you're a football fan, it's not about being a Benfica fan right now. Football fan, you go and subscribe because you're going to get value for money. And like I said, look at the backdrop, man. It's always been on point. So make sure you subscribe. Link is in the description. Subscribe here. We just crossed 40K yesterday. It was madness. Big up everybody there for the support. We'll be back tomorrow. All you can eat Chelsea. Yes, it will be tomorrow morning, 11 o'clock. It's only going to be an hour because I'm literally floating between different pieces of content that morning, but it will be tomorrow with the whole cast and crew. And I'll see you tomorrow morning for that. That will be the next upload. There's no FIFA tonight. There's no Barcelona versus Betis watch along. I need to go out and celebrate the 40K, of course, but also relax because yesterday was honestly one of the most draining experiences of my life with this transfer. So until next time, in a bit, people, peace. Perfect.